of heroes. And I think it's safe to call Rifleman Benjamin Randall Harris a hero as well. And at the same time, I think it's important to remember that these men, these heroes, they're not superheroes like we see today in movies. They don't wear a cape. They don't have any superhuman strength. They have no special powers. What they do have is they have will. The will to fight, the will to drive on, the will to live, the will to win. And I think that's the superpower. And it never ceases to amaze me. These are normal people. Rifleman Harris was a normal guy. Like us. But when called upon to march, they march. And when called upon to fight, they fight. And when called upon to rise up and overcome, they do just that. They rise up and overcome. And that shows us that we can do the same thing in the challenges that we face. We can do the same thing. Rise and overcome. And I think that's all I've got for tonight. So, Echo, perhaps if you could let people know how they can support themselves, and maybe if they want to support this podcast as well.
It's crazy how these marches, right?
Brutal.
Yeah, and this is I don't know. I mean, from what I can remember, the worst one, especially how they talk about it with no shoes. Their shoes probably just fall off within the first little bit, and then they're walking with no shoes or barely any shoes or whatever, crying straight up, just from the march. By the way, not the war or anything like that. Where the march is yet just as big of an enemy.
He said his pack was his biggest enemy he had.
Literally, though.
Yeah.
The kind where guys are straight up
it's
dying.
killing them. It's killing them.
So we just got back from Utah, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And, after we're doing that training where, we brief, debrief, go down, exercise, brief. And then, we walk back and forth.
Right.
So
Echo, I'll just tell people because people have no idea what you're talking about, which is fine. Echo, we just got Echelon Front did a FTX field training exercise with a company. We were in Utah. We brought Echo out so that he could get some footage and whatnot. And so that's what he's talking about. So we're in the field. We're doing basically urban combat with a group of, let's call them regular people, business people that are learning leadership through experiential environments.
Yeah, it's an interesting one too. I mean,
it's a good one.
It's like you know how if you don't communicate with someone effectively, things fall apart.
Right.
Or if you don't, it's like, and
I know exactly what you're going to say.
And it's this drawn out situation in life, but this is like a condensed version of that. And
so if you don't communicate with someone during an FTX, within like 30 seconds that something just went wrong. And now we're getting shot in the face with airsoft rifles. Which is fun.
It's really fun to watch from the outside.
Yeah.
Because you see it, and I've been to another one too. And you see it's right, and it's interesting how in the beginning it's like it's almost impossible. Like you don't.
Right.
And immediately communication breaks down immediately.
Yep.
And then towards the end, you start to see people communicating, getting it, you know, like where you kind of, a lot of times you got to over communicate.
Yeah, for sure.
But the more you do that, the more effective it is. You know, it's so crazy to watch.
It is. And I don't know if you remember Dave saying this. Dave told them, he said, Jocko just told you the mistakes that you're going to make. He told you what you're going to do.
Yeah.
And you're going to do it. And then sure enough, every single one of them.
Yeah.
The funniest was the one individual that said they came up with a plan for something. Mm-hmm. And we said, you know, you're risking get a blue on blue there.
Yeah.
And she said, listen, I understand what you're saying, but it's not like we're going to walk in there and start shooting each other.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen. And sure enough, that very girl was in a stressful situation, and they entered a building from two different sides at the same time. And sure enough, she dusted one of her teammates.
Yeah.
And it was, you know, it's one of those things.
Yeah.
I said, hey, remember what you said yesterday? She said, oh yeah, I remember.
Yeah. So interesting. And I had the luxury of seeing it from the outside. But
so did I.
You can feel it though. Yeah, but you're in a different position than me. Anyway, the point is, so the terrain there was where the field and where you actually do the field training part of it is like, what would you say? What 100 yards away from the where you do the briefs and debriefs?
It was about 400 yards. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a trek.
300 yards. Yeah.
If you're doing it again and again,
multiple times.
So we're going brief, exercise, debrief, brief, you know, so kind of all day, really. So, and this was a situation where it was a hill and rocky, you know, hill.
Right.
So I'm walking, right, and I have my camera the whole time, and it's lighter than my other camera, but you know, it's something. And so I'm walking back and forth all day, where my feet are starting to get like kind of tired, more tired than normal. And I'm thinking every single time I'm thinking this is nothing. Compared to what you guys were
literally
going through.
Nothing.
Yeah.
You know how nothing it was? I didn't. That thought didn't even cross my mind at all in any way, shape, or form.
You know what's interesting about that is while I'm walking, this was like after lunchtime. I'm thinking, I'm seeing you guys and everyone's cruising, and I'm thinking, is everyone trying to act like this isn't like kind of tiring?
I literally didn't think of it until you said this to me right now.
Yeah. The thing is, I was totally acting like, "Fuck, this is nothing." And I wasn't gonna mention it. I was gonna, bro. That's how I handle a lot of stuff.
That's
now.
good,
and it helps. It helps a lot.
It is.
But the fact is,
do you do actually better when you pretend that it doesn't bother you?
Yes.
That's see? People got to remember that.
Night and day.
Night and day. So you start acting all tired and accepting it and showing everyone.
Yeah, it's true. But nonetheless, the fact is it wasn't nothing. It wasn't nothing. I felt it, and you know. So it's funny. I'm looking at you guys. I'm like, hey, I wonder if these guys are, you know. But no one said anything. No. Nobody said, dang, these tracks are getting long.
That's because they were 300 meters, bro. If that.
Just saying. But nonetheless, so every time I feel anything like that, I think of like you guys first, and you guys are doing it in like crazy heat too, with gear and like all this stuff. And I think of these kind of guys. Yeah. Rifleman Harris. Feet all tore up. Starving. No sleep.
No water. And people are trying to kill you.
Oh, yeah.
So that's the point, man.
Yeah.
Is if these guys can rise and overcome that, then think of your personal potential.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Think of it. Think of what more you could do.
Yeah.
That bothers you a little bit. I just saw the look of bothersome in your eyes.
And that look.
You're like, hey, I made some dope videos though.
I'm about to make a huge excuse right now too.
Oh, here we go.
Which I don't even know if it's an excuse, but it's a factor where these like actual hard times kind of call on you to exercise this kind of will, you know? And I think a lot of times we're not, like, hard times don't call on us like this anyway. I mean, hard times do, you know? Yeah. But you know what though? You should technically and potentially you should be able to exercise as much will as it takes. Really, now when you consider kind of the limits, you know, because these are the limits.
I thought it was interesting. Like, this is one of the stories where the guy's like, "I'm done."
Yeah,
he's like, "Okay, I'm done." Guys are saying, "Hey, if you stay here, you're gonna die." He's like, "Yeah, I cannot move anymore."
Yep.
I mean, you think about, you know, what point are you at when you cannot save your own life by walking? You can't walk, can't take another step.
Oh man. Yeah.
And he came back from that.
Yeah. Dang. Yeah. And they do a really good job in illustrating it, because or talking about it, because he mentioned the no shoes thing a few times.
Yeah, he did. But again, I bet he does a great job, but you can't even begin to. Yeah. You can't even begin to really get the point across.
Yeah.
The way it is.
As the reader.
I was talking to a guy the other day that went to Buds and didn't make it through.
Yeah.
And I known him for a while, and I just said, like, hey man, you know, you're a good dude. You know what? Why did you quit? And he said, you know, it just sucked. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, but didn't you know it was going to suck? And he said, yeah, I knew it was going to suck. But at the same time, you know, I watched it on TV and I thought to myself, okay, yeah, that's going to suck. He said, so I thought I understood how it was going to suck. Yeah. But I didn't understand how it was going to suck. Yeah. And then I was there. I said, this really sucks. And he quit. And again, a good dude that I'm kind of, you know, thinking to myself, why? I'm trying to figure out why people quit. Yeah. And that was what he said. He said, much like we're saying, like as much as you could imagine, and you think to yourself, oh man, but I think I could make that one more step. Yeah. You don't know. Yeah. You don't know until you've been dehydrated, having people trying to shoot you, cleaning up your buddy's brains off your jacket for weeks, months on end. Yeah. You're dehydrated, and now you have no shoes, no stockings, and you're doing a forced march on this road for. They marched 4 days without stopping. What even is that?
I know, bro. Dang. Yeah. Yeah. That's it. I mean, this kind of. That's not to mention like no medical care. No, like no one's coming to save you. Like you're not.
You know what? You know what's really jacked up is think about this. Think if you have an ingrown toenail. Right. Like a little thing that. It actually bothers you in actual life. Yeah. Think if you had that here, or you have let's say you got a sprained ankle. Yeah. A bad sprained ankle. Mm-hmm. I sprained my ankle really bad before. Sure. You can't walk on it. Well, now you don't have a choice. You either walk on it or you die. Or die. Think about the little things that cause you an inconvenience right now. And think about what an inconvenience that is in this situation. Think about you get a little infection in your fingers. You know, your finger. You ever had one of those little stupid, like, where your fingernail is, you get a little infection there? Yeah. Think about that. Oh, yeah. And that you don't have no medicine. You don't have any way of. That thing's going to turn into a giant infection. Yeah. You die. Yeah. So the little tiny things that annoy you will kill you. Yeah. Back in the day. Check. Yeah. So what we have to do is prepare for these hard times. Do you have any advice on how we could help prepare ourselves for these hard times?
On top of referencing these scenarios, I reference your guys' scenario, like basically everything that you guys tell me and talk about, like how it's super hot, how you don't sleep as much. I'm not talking about Bud. I'm talking about like Ian Ramadi, like all these stuff. I kind of imagine that helps. Totally helps.
That's good. Because it helps me to think about Rifleman Harris.
Yeah.
For sure.
Me too. Speaking of help,